UFC Vegas 100, the 100th fight card at the Apex, Alex, we're finally here. It's the moment we've all been waiting for.
It's only taken like 700 days.
Yeah, it hasn't been very long.
Since like
COVID,
the middle of
pretty much.
COVID. Yeah.
But a 6-fight main card. Actually, 5 fights. I'm sorry. No, 6.
It's still 6. They just swapped it around on us.
6 fight. I only have 5 written down, so.
Don't worry about it. Well, we're covering the 5 we both knew about when we wrote it.
Yes, correct.
All right. Well, let's go over the first one, the middleweight division. Mansur Abdul Malik, 6-0 middleweight, taking on Dusko Todorovic, a 12-4 middleweight.
Abdul Malik, it's his UFC debut, 6-0, as you said. All 6 wins have come by finish, 5 knockouts, 1 submission, including second round TKO in his Dana White Contender Series fight, which was his last fight. And they kind of gave him an interesting fight to start his UFC career off with. He's taken on a guy who's been in the UFC for a little while. He's 3-4 in Todorovic. I'm sorry. He lost his last fight by injury.
It's weird.
Knee injury last May.
He's had not quite a few. He's had a few UFC fights, and he's fought people we know, but I feel like I've never seen him fight.
Well, he's 3-4 in the UFC. He has 3 knockout wins, 3 knockout losses. So he's a guy, he's going to go out, stand and bang, and he's going to put it all out on the line. And he's taking on a guy who's making his UFC debut, as we said, in Abdul Malik, but he's a guy who's going to also want to do that. So I think this is going to be a very entertaining fight. And I think they set up Abdul Malik to come in and make a show in his first career UFC fight. Make a name for himself for UFC fans. I
agree. They're definitely giving him the opportunity. -425 money line pre-fight odds.
They're saying, show us what you can do, make a splash.
27-30.
It's good matchmaking.
Slight age favorite there. 79-inch reach to 74-inch reach. 5-inch reach advantage. That's big. Real big.
That is big.
Especially if you ask me.
Especially if it's a guy that gets knocked out a lot.
Or often. 3-3, I wouldn't say a lot. He's only 12 wins, 4 losses, 3 by knockout.
I'm talking UFC. He's lost 4 times, 3 of them by knockout.
That is a fair
He's alternated wins, losses the last 5. That is a plus for him, meaning that if that trend continues, he's due for a win. That's Dusko.
Fair.
But
I guess I wasn't. What I'm looking at is who the losses are to. You know, it's not the worst. You got Chris Duncan, Chidi Jokwani, Gregory Robocop Rodriguez.
Yeah, it's not bad losses. He's a good fighter. I think he's an exciting fighter, but I think we might be looking in a year or two and be like, oh, that's not a bad loss either, Abdul Malik.
That's actually a very good way to do it, or to look at it. I'm going to say Mansur Abdul Malik KO knockout.
I agree. I think it's going to be – I'm going to lean towards second round. I think the UFC has set him up to get a big win here.
And there's this one fly. I'm going to name him Jeff. You see him on the computer?
What about
the
other one on the computer?
I don't see him.
To the left of him, Jeff.
Dang. Oh, well. Let's move on to the next fight. Luana Pinheiro versus Jillian Robertson, the Savage. Pinheiro is on a 2-fight losing streak.
3-2 in the UFC. Started off very strong and then has lost 2 in a row, both by finish, KO and sub.
Yep. Pinheiro's wins in the UFC, I have to say, is a split decision to an older Michelle Waterson Gomez.
And an injury, correct? Injury
and a DQ.
Yeah, for a legal upkick.
Over a legal upkick for Rosanna Marcos or something like that. And I will say she did have a close win over Sam Hughes. So the only thing I have to worry about with Pinheiro is she a good fighter?
We're about to see, because I think Robinson's a pretty good fighter.
Robertson is that dude in the sense of she's a great chick fighter.
And she's a
savage. Like, her nickname is what she is.
She's going to show up all the time. She's 11-6 in the UFC.
2 KO, 9 subs.
With 2 straight wins, and she's won 4 of the last 5. So it's Pinheiro, as you said, he was kind of on the losing end of things as of late and hasn't been the most impressive. And she's taking on Robertson, who has won 4 out of 5, who's kind of after a shaky UFC start. I wouldn't say shaky. I would say win one, lose one. She's kind of been on a run lately, and she's been looking very good lately.
I accredit that to the change in division. She was in she was in flyweight. Now she's in strawweight. So moving to that division, I think, is what led to her finding that power, finding the.
She has a killer ground game.
Ability to just smash girls on the ground, and I love to see it. I believe One of her first fights in the strawweight division, I was like, oh, Jillian Robinson, I've seen her lose a bunch against her. And then she just dog walked the opponent. And then again, I picked against her. I'm not doing that anymore.
They have a
I'm smashing the Jillian Robertson like button.
You said Pinheiro, one of her wins, a win against Michelle Waterson Gomez.
Yeah.
Robinson's, her last fight was a win against her, but very different win.
Right.
In terms of she made Waterson Gomez finally retire. She's beat the shit out of her.
Yeah, she demolished her through the fight to where Waterson Gomez retired. Not because of the fight, but she was like, "Yep, it's time.
Yeah,
I've had all I needed.
I don't want this anymore." But so yeah, I think we both agree. Robertson win.
Do you see Robertson getting a finish for third? Handing Pinheiro her third straight finish loss.
I think so. I think Robinson. She's been building momentum. She's been, getting better as a fighter. Career's going in opposite direction. I think Robertson's probably in this training camp. Yeah, she's probably focused on winning, but she's probably also focused on, I know I can make a big splash right here.
Right.
Make a jump. So yeah, I'm gonna go a second round, either submission or TKO ground finish.
Nice. Let's go to the middleweight division next. This is going to be a specialist fight. Gerald GM3 Meerschaert taking on a UFC newcomer, but someone who's accustomed to fights at high levels. He's Rainier de Ridder.
De Ridder, UFC debut, as you said, 17-2 overall. He went 7-2-1, which is one of the top. Besides the UFC, it's probably the top one. Right up there with PFL.
Yeah, he's former 2 Division 1 champion.
Former 2 Division 1 champ.
At the same time,
Yeah, he had 2.
He lost both belts in the same night to that guy. I can't say his name.
It's crazy. But
he who shall not be named.
Out of his 17 wins, 12 of them by submission. So as you said, he's a submission specialist. And he's taking on, as we know, Meerschaert. We watched him in the last fight. We watched him a bunch of fights.
Yes.
He's 12-9 in the UFC, but 37-17 overall with 29 career submissions.
Holds a UFC at least middleweight.
11 career UFC submissions. Meerschaert, this is a specialist for a specialist. It almost makes me think it's going to be a stand-up fight.
So check this out. Last time Meerschaert fought, he fought Edmund Shabazian, the Golden Boy, right?
Yes.
You picked Edmund Shabazian. I picked GM3 to catch that crazy sub and then win.
That's what happened.
Which happened. Nuts. We were looking at that crazy age difference on that fight. I think Shabazian's 28, Meerschaert's 36. This is one that is not a factor. One of those where it's like two guys that age at least doesn't really play a big range. One of the things I'm looking at here, though, is De Ridder, when he was in fighting at 1, his last middleweight fight was in like 2019. Everything since then has been light heavyweight or heavyweight whenever he was like, he did a couple grappling things where he just, not trying to cut weight for that.
Yeah.
So my question, UFC debut, we already know it's always a difference in competition. Although one is one of the bigger ones, gotta say. Can that extra 20-pound weight cut hurt De Ridder? With somebody like Meerschaert, who's been fighting middleweight for how many UFC fights now?
I see what you're saying, but I'm gonna bank on that De Ridder. He's a vet in terms of as a fighter.
Both southpaw fighters, half an inch reach.
So I think he's gonna come in where it's not that much of a weight cut. He's gonna be in a little better shape.
Speaking to the guy last week, Cal Machado, he was from heavyweight to light heavyweight. Dude looked very good.
He did. But I think this is, I'm surprised with the odds on this because I think it's a pretty even fight. Meerschaert is a guy, he's won 2 in a row, but he's kind of a win a couple, lose a couple fighter.
He definitely...
so I think when his stock's riding too high, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to go with the UFC debut. I'm going to go with De Ridder getting the win.
That's a very interesting way to put it.
I think they kind of cancel out the ground game from each other.
So if this were like a roulette table, Black's hit
red.
Too many times, you're going red.
Yeah.
That's the only reason?
That's not the only reason. I just think it's going to be an even fight. And
I was just trying to...
And De Ridder is a former champ. He's fought... Although Meerschaert's been in the UFC, De Ridder's been a champ, and you could technically say he's probably fought at a higher, if not the same level.
He fought the best that one offered.
So it's at least the same level. It's probably the guys. most of the guys that Meerschaert has fought tough guys like Hamzat, but he also got knocked out in like 10 seconds by Hamzat.
You know the people like Romanov, right? He's a heavyweight who wrestles, so it's like if you don't knock him out, you can't beat him.
Yeah.
Is that kind of Renaer's de Ritter's thing? Like he was in light heavyweight fighting a bunch of dudes who couldn't wrestle?
I think so, because that's the only way he's ever lost is by knockout. He hasn't been submitted.
So that's one of the things that leans me to do my pick. I picked GM3 because I think Ritter's been riding that not knockout, but riding the lack of wrestling people a lot, and he's going to run into somebody who knows his way around a canvas.
I agree,
knows
but I don't
his
think
way around a grown man.
But I think
I got GM3.
I think it
for
goes
the win.
both ways, and I'm gonna bank on de Ritter having the better strike, and I got de Ritter.
All right, we can disagree. See how that worked out for us last week. Let's go to the next fight.
1 week.
Ricky Turcios taking on Bernardo Sopaj.
The new co-main event.
New co-main event. So Turcios lost
to Rosa Jr. in June.
to the prolific young man Raul Rosa Jr.
Second round submission. He's 2-2 now in the UFC, 12-4 overall. So
Isn't it crazy? Because I feel like Turcios has been fighting in the UFC forever.
Well, because I think he was on a season of the
he was. And we saw him fight once every other day.
It was when they brought Ultimate Fighter back, so it was like
Yeah.
the one season I actually watched recently.
Right, exactly.
But he's 2-2 in the UFC. He's alternated wins, losses in the UFC, and he's taking on Sopaj. 0-1 in the UFC. He got KO'd.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes from there.
Now
you're thrown into a co-main event against a guy who is 2-2 in the UFC, but I think all accounts people would say Turcios is a dog.
Turcios is a good fighter, and when we talk about losses aging well, that Raul Rosa loss is almost guaranteed to age fantastically.
Yeah, I mean, it's already not a bad loss.
Right. We didn't think it was a bad loss the moment it happened. Everybody pretty much thought he was going to lose. On this one, man, it's tough because you got Turcios with a big reach advantage of 5 inches on a smaller framed guys at, bantamweight.
And it's a guy who just got knocked out
By a vicious knee to Vinicius Oliveira.
Yeah.
But it was in the last 30 seconds of a fight where Sopaj was doing his damnedest. It was 1-1 going into the third. Sopaj did tire out, but he took it on short notice.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's for Sopaj, you can't really say it's a terrible loss, even if he got knocked out.
And one thing I'll say is Sopaj, in his wins, he typically finishes.
Yep.
11 wins, 10 finishes.
He scored like 3 takedowns on Oliveira, which means,
Turcios is a guy when he wins usually by decision.
Right.
12 wins, 8 decisions. Sopaj is 1-2 in decision fights. I think this is going to be a decision fight. I think Sopaj's probably not going to be able to knock out Turcios. I think Turcios, he's been in the UFC longer, has more experience. He's fought better guys. I think he's the better fighter.
Okay.
I'm going with Turcios. I think it's going to be a decision win, but I think it's going to be a unanimous decision win.
I wholeheartedly disagree.
Oh, wow.
I think Bernardo Sopaj is going to win. That's all I got to say about that. I hope I get that one right. Damn it.
All right, so now
Main
let's
event.
go. The main event, I think we both agree on this one.
This
Magny,
one should be odds efficient.
the Haitian sensation Neil Magny, 29-12 overall, 22 career UFC wins, 11 losses.
That's
impressive.
I was gonna say that's what I put a big look at here. He's been fighting in the UFC since 2013.
22
Since I graduated high school.
22 UFC wins is very impressive. No
It's
matter what you
insane.
say, he has alternated his last 8 fights though, and
I
coming
did
off of
also
a
see
round
that.
1 loss to Michael Morales.
He has a 6-year age deficit to Carlos Prates.
And Prates is 20-6 overall, 3-0 in the UFC, all 3 knockouts.
He most recently, I believe, knocked out Chuck Buffalo Charles Radke.
Well, he
by
knocked
a
out Li
knee.
Jingliang too.
Oh, Li Jingliang was the first time Li Jingliang was beaten or
Yes.
finished, I should say. Prates.
10 straight wins for Prates, 9 of them.
insane.
10 straight wins, 9 straight KO/TKOs. So he's a guy, he's on a streak. He's figured some things out.
You said that Magny hasn't gone. He's alternated wins and losses his last 8.
And he lost
hasn't-
first round TKO his last fight.
He hasn't lost back-to-back fights since entering, like one fight after entering the UFC in 2013.
I mean, he is
impressive.
a vet. He is a vet. That's why I'm a little surprised the odds are this crazy. I think it's like minus 900 for Prates.
The thing is, fighters like Neil Magny, he's said it himself. He's like comfortable being a gatekeeper fighting prospects. So like that's great for your stock in the UFC. It just sucks for your stats. You know, because like you're gonna take losses when you're the gatekeeper who's cool fighting prospects all the time.
Yeah, because you never know who you're gonna fight.
Yeah, like you're gonna run into Carlos Prates. You're gonna run into Charles Radke. So you're gonna win some. You're gonna lose some.
Ian Gary.
You know, name him. He's beaten him, but also probably lost to him. He's fought everybody. He's willing to fight everybody.
I think the odds are a little unfair for Magny. I still think Prates is going to get a win, but I think minus 900 for Prates, that's crazy against a guy who has 22
steep.
career UFC wins.
That is pretty steep. Neil Magny is a vet, so put respect on that dude's name for sure.
I think he's going to come and he's going to
Hill after all. All right, that's my one dig. Move on.
But yeah, I got Prates winning. I don't know if he's going to get the knockout. I think he could get the knockout, but I'm kind of leaning more towards Neil Magny shows him some things in terms of brings him a little down to earth, but Prates is still able to get the win. But Neil Magny's going to have a little success, but I got Prates by unanimous decision.
Unanimous decision? Okay.
Well, you can't call a split decision because that's just calling the
podcast. I got Prates. You could just say I got Prates by.
You could. That's just saying like I got one judge isn't going to pay attention.
Sal Diamato by split decision. No, I got Carlos Prates. I have no idea how he wins it. He could, based on the odds, I feel like he's going to walk out, punch him once in the face, and Magny's just going to be a corpse on the ground. But based on how we historically see people fight, it's going to be an entertaining, scrap. I could easily agree seeing Prates be a unanimous decision victory here.